If you watch my videos, you know I'm not the biggest fan of running a lot of gen slowdown perks, mostly just because I think other perks are a lot more fun to use. In no way do I mean to downplay how strong they are, and they're absolutely necessary to beat strong survivor squads a lot of the time. But in my opinion, when newer or even average killers run these perks, they'll do excellent for a while, but then get frustrated and confused when they start to lose, when they feel like they're doing everything they can to win. The fact is, you can run a strong meta slowdown build and end all of your chases relatively quickly and still lose. This is how Dead by Daylight differs from a lot of first-person PvP games, because not only are you expected to play well in the 1v1, but you're expected to play well in the macro game, the 1v4 as well. So these tips aim to help killers develop the game sense that they'll need to be able to compete at a higher level, instead of just trying to band-aid bad 1v4 gameplay with strong perks. Now the main idea you'll find in all of these tips is that survivors not doing gens is good. It doesn't matter how you get them off. Doing gens is the only way to win the game, so even when you're having a bad time getting blinded, teabagged, and stunned, if they aren't doing gens, you are not losing. This is the reason I love fully committed bully squads. When everyone takes part in bullying the killer, at least I know they aren't getting any closer to opening the exit gates. So first let's address the obvious pressure methods that everyone hates, camping and tunneling. I don't really care to debate whether these are toxic strategies or efficient gameplay or whatever, but I can't deny that they're really strong because they get other survivors off gens. Camping, or staying close to a hook survivor, usually forces at least 2 survivors to come to the rescue, which can literally be a death sentence in solo queue. And tunneling, going after only one player until they're dead, aims to turn the game into a 1v3 as soon as possible, which is much easier for the killer to manage. Tunneling can also pull survivors off gens to try and take hits for this player. I'm not a huge fan of either of these for 2 reasons. One is that I play solo survivor and know how unfun it is to play against. And 2 is that it's a pretty boring playstyle for me personally. But if you do enjoy doing these, if you love getting hate messages in the post-game chat and playing the same way every time, I'm not going to stop you. But I will say that these will not help you improve very much in the 1v4, since anyone can walk around a hook or go for the same person over and over in the 1v1 chase. And when you eventually get to playing squads that have the perks, items, and experience to counter these, you probably won't be having fun anymore either. So the first real tip I have to keep pressure on the survivors is to remember survivor location info, with the keyword here being remember. This includes seeing them with aura reading perks, seeing a missed skill check explosion, seeing crows in the distance, anything that lets you know the general area the survivor is in. The reason I say remember is because you will often find yourself close to those areas later on, and can use the info to try and add more pressure against the team. Take a look at this example. I get a hook and see a person on the far gen with barbecue. Way too far for me to care about, but when I chase down this person a little bit closer, I realize the gen hasn't popped, so she must still be on it. Now instead of getting an immediate hook from the first down and losing a gen, by downing this player as well, I have at least 1 hook, maybe 2, the team needs to come pick someone up quickly, and I save the gen, all because I remembered the location from earlier. Another example, I see every survivor here with lethal pursuer. I chase the one to the left, but when he runs me by the other 2, who I know are by a gen, I break off and go after them. So now 3 survivors aren't doing gens, and it takes the one I left about 15 seconds to get on a different one, which was more than enough time for me to get a second down if I didn't suck. Tip number 2, recognize and create dead zones on the map. By dead zone, I mean an area without many good pallets or windows. For example, this hook has 2 entrances, one on the left, one on the right, and not much to loop around there, so I can camp from 40 feet away. I actually chose to hook Jane here because of this. I had a closer hook here, but chose to go further back at the cost of a few extra seconds. The map Azrael's Resting Place is a great example of this. If you get 2 hooks on this side and know the survivors are over here, you can camp the middle lane and make life very difficult for the rescuers without looking as pathetic as this. But recognizing dead zones goes beyond a tactical camp. By working to create dead zones around a 3 gen or just zoning survivors toward them during a chase, they'll go down much quicker as the game goes on. Even coordinated swifts rarely communicate which pallets they've already used to each other. Let's go back to the game where I hooked Jane here, since it's a good example that combines both of the first 2 tips. Once I hook, I go on another chase, but after 30 seconds and being at one of the best loops in the game in Shack, I break chase to see if anyone's going for Jane yet, since the unhooker will be in the nice dead zone. After hearing and injuring the Sybil to my left, Michaela shows me right where she is with the killer instinct from using the vaccine. So now everyone is injured and Jane's going to stage 2 because I knew where all 3 survivors were, and I knew that Jane was in a dead zone with only 2 entrances. Is that camping? Well, the survivors thought so. But since I gave 30 seconds to save and wasn't really close until the end of the hook stage, I think I can live with my conscience. These tips are also important to watch out for when playing Survivor. Don't underestimate how damaging showing your location to the killer can be for your team. And recognize and communicate when dead zones are being created at important locations. But enough about finding creative ways to camp and not feel bad about it. Let's talk about another survivor favorite, slugging. Slugging just means downing but not hooking a survivor, since they can't pick themselves up without perks. See, they look like a slug. It's very creative. Tip number 3 is that 2 downs is greater than 1 hook, pretty much always. Now I don't mean 1 down and 1 chase, I mean 2 downs. If you see a survivor nearby after downing someone, and you think you can down them quickly based on the loops nearby, I would almost always recommend going for it. In the worst case scenario, someone comes and picks up the first survivor, but you still have 1 chase survivor, 1 slug survivor, and 1 to come pick up. If you down and hook the first survivor immediately, you could have 3 survivors still on gens, with 1 eventually coming to rescue. Again, getting the maximum number of survivors to get off gens should always be in the back of your head while playing killer. And slugging is a very quick way to do that. A lot of killers feel like they got too greedy and messed up when a survivor gets picked up, but that's at least 1 less player on a gen for at least a few seconds, so you should really consider it a success. Look, I'll prove it with another example. I start this match and see 1 far away survivor and 3 close ones with Lethal Pursuer. In case you can't tell, I love Lethal Pursuer. So after my first down, about 45 seconds into the game, I see a sneaky Claire looking for a flashlight save, so I chase her too. Although my first hit takes a little longer than I hoped, I decide to commit since I remember at least 1 other survivor is on this side of the map too. I hear the gen that they're on and break chase to go for them. And look, Claire's healing from the hit I gave her, which is great, because she's not on a gen. The original Claudette gets picked up by the 4th survivor, but then I down Fang, so I traded 1 immediate hook at the start for getting every survivor off a gen, and then still get a hook anyway. That's what good killer pressure looks like. But let's take slugging a bit further. Tip number 4 is to go for the snowball. In DBD, a snowball is where you very quickly tip the scales in your favor by downing multiple survivors quickly. If you down 2 survivors and spot the 3rd, I think it's worth the risk most of the time, because the risk isn't even actually that bad of a scenario. Even if they completely recover, it's a full team effort to get off the ground and heal, and during all of that, you're probably still chasing and hooking at least 1 of them. I can't quite complete the snowball in a lot of games, but even then, I've kept all the survivors in one place, and again, they're not on generators. Now when you snowball at 4 or 5 gens left, it's okay to be merciful, and I feel bad for the survivors sometimes too. So it's your call on ending the game right then and there, but at least make sure they know that you could've, if you wanted to. The final tip is a bit vague, and will require some experience as killer, and that is, don't let survivors get away with bullshit. What is bullshit? Some examples include forcing decisive strike, body blocking with borrowed time, saving right in front of you, the standard stuff that gets showcased in every survivor main's YouTube channel. Make no mistake, really good teams know what they can get away with, but most Swifts are very overconfident when it comes to bullying. If a survivor wants to force DS, leave him on the ground. That's a 30-second recovery, and someone probably has to leave a gen to come pick him up. Wait out borrowed time if they're in your face, or if you have to hit them, at least that's a 12-second mend, and 12 seconds where they aren't on a gen. Are they trying to save a hooked survivor while you're carrying another one? A lot of survivors seem to forget that you can drop a carried survivor whenever you want. Survivors will sacrifice time they could be on gens for time making a fun play over and over again. And I don't blame them, because holding M1 is boring, but I am going to try and take advantage of it. You might get called sweaty in the post-game chat, but remember that the difference between I was just memeing bro and GG easy is usually decided by whether they beat you or not. So to recap, remember survivor locations, recognize dead zones, 2 downs is greater than 1 hook, go for the snowball, and don't let them get away with bullshit. But really all these can be summed up with the same idea, that survivors not being on gens is always a good thing, and you should look for any opportunity to make it happen. Don't think of not getting a hook as a failure. As long as more of the survivors had to get involved, you're buying yourself more time. Once you have these gameplay ideas down, especially combined with gen slowdown perks and stronger add-ons, there's no reason you shouldn't be winning most of your killer games, even against good teams. Finally, to recall a tip from my How to Enjoy Killer series, remember the RNG. There will be games where you can't seem to get any survivors close together, they split well on gens, you have a bad first chase, and maybe they get a lucky break or 2. Although you can use these tips to improve your pressuring skills, it's not always all on you if you lose. But don't just run to the internet to tell everyone it's impossible to win as killer now, cause honestly, at that point, it's just a skill issue.